More than 3,000 years ago, an enigmatic people in Mesoamerica erected colossal stone statues of human faces, carved with such refined detail that, to this day, archaeologists continue to search for definitive explanations regarding the techniques used. Known as the Olmecs, a name given much later by the Aztecs, meaning rubber people, in reference to the rubber trees of the region, these ancient artisans are credited as the mother civilization of the entire Mesoamerican area. But who were they? Where did they live? And what mysteries surround their monuments and artifacts? In this article, we will dissect 3 of the most intriguing episodes of this millennia-old culture. 1. From Huimanguillo to La Venta, colossal heads and secret chambers. In 1958, drilling operations by Petróleos Mexicanos in Huimanguillo, Tabasco, uncovered a previously unknown site, revealing 3 imposing Olmec heads, sculpted in volcanic rock with impressive realism. Some claim that beneath the soil of La Venta lie galleries never opened to the public, where forbidden records were allegedly found that could redefine aspects of Mesoamerican history. Concerned about the risk of destruction due to oil exploration, poet Carlos Pellicer Camara took the initiative to protect these artifacts, enabling their relocation to a safe space. Thus, the La Venta Archaeological Park was born on the outskirts of Villahermosa, where today not only the famous heads are housed, but also altars, columns, mosaics, and offerings that attest to the sophistication of the Olmecs. There, one perceives not only an advanced artistic style, but also a refined understanding of astronomy, demonstrated by pyramids, platforms aligned with celestial events, irrigation systems, and drainage canals. The invention of long-count calendars and a hieroglyphic numbering system, dots and bars, attests to this people's mastery of mathematics and time. 2. The sudden emergence of an advanced culture. Unlike other traditions that evolved gradually, the Olmecs appear in the archaeological record already fully developed between 1500 and 400 BCE, with flourishing urban centers in San Lorenzo, La Venta, and Tres Zapotes. These 3 hubs formed a cultural triangle from which influence spread throughout Mesoamerica. Among the innovations attributed to them is the Cascajal Block, a limestone slab with 62 glyphs, considered the oldest writing in the Americas. They are also credited with the earliest large-scale land leveling practices, the excavation of canals for water control, and the crafting of hematite mirrors, possibly used in rituals or to orient buildings according to celestial points. There is evidence that in rudimentary fashion, they used magnetized stone compasses to align their temples. Do you believe the Olmecs developed this writing and astronomy system independently, or might they have received influence from visitors from other continents? Type origin if you support cultural independence, or contact if you believe in external borrowing. The famous giant heads, each with unique features, fuel the hypothesis that they are realistic portraits of rulers, ball game ritual athletes, or even divine representations. Their diverse expressions, at times serene, at times stern, suggest that, beyond being monuments, they might have been encoded messages whose key was lost to the depths of time. 3. Tres Zapotes and the first monumental sculpture. In 1862, explorer José María Melgari Serrano found the first large Olmec head ever described in Tres Zapotes, Veracruz. Enchanted by the sculpture's craftsmanship and expression, he proposed the idea of pre-Columbian African influences, theories still debated to this day. The transportation of these basalt pieces, often weighing dozens of tons, remains a logistical mystery. The rocks came from the Tuxtla Mountains, more than 100 kilometers away, without the use of wheels or pack animals. How they moved these massive stones through rivers, swamps, and dense forests remains a testament to Olmec ingenuity. Finally, in Tres Zapotes, A relic so disturbing was found that no one has dared to display it in museums to this day. Want to discover what this artifact is and how it could rewrite theories about transoceanic voyages from 3,000 years ago? Sign up now and stay tuned for this revelation. This civilization, which emerged suddenly and disappeared mysteriously, left Mesoamerica with artistic and scientific advancements unmatched in its time. The search for their origins, technical knowledge, and the meaning of their enigmas continues, keeping the flame of curiosity alive among archaeologists and enthusiasts around the world. 4. The Olmecs and the knowledge of the wheel archaeologists have found at Olmec sites such as La Venta, clay-carved toys with wheels, the most famous being a terracotta puppy mounted on 4 movable discs. This supports the assumption that this people already understood the mechanical principle of the wheel, one of humanity's most transformative innovations. Even so, there is no record of this technology being used in cargo vehicles or utilitarian tools in everyday Mesoamerican life. Proposed reasons include the uneven topography of the Gulf of Mexico and the lack of domesticated animals suitable for pulling loads. From this perspective, the wheel may have served only playful or ritual purposes, rather than as a practical tool. The mystery deepens when considering the transportation of the monumental Olmec heads, carved from basalt and weighing between 6 and 50 tons. These sculptures were moved up to 150 kilometers without the aid of rotating axles or carts, a feat that defies the traditional engineering methods of the time. Bolder theories speculate about sacred ceremonies along the route, or lost technologies that may have involved magnetic principles, levitation, or advanced knowledge of levers. Could the Olmecs have been true pioneers of techniques that today seem unimaginable? The wheeled toys may hint at a more sophisticated level of technology than previously assumed. 5. The possible invention of the compass by the Olmec studies of more than 50 sites attributed to Olmec culture reveal surprising urban alignments. In La Venta, for example, the city's main axis is offset by about 8 degrees west of true north, a deviation suggesting deliberate orientation. From the top of the central pyramid, priests could observe stars and plan astronomical festivals with considerable precision. Although some structures appear simple, their placement reveals refined mastery of astronomy and geometry. These alignments were not only useful for agriculture, but also served as symbolic thresholds for communicating with the divine. For many experts, the pyramids were, above all, energy portals connecting the community to celestial forces. In a remarkable find at La Venta, archaeologists from the University of Michigan discovered a small metal bar, approximately 3.5 centimeters long, that, when floating in water, consistently points toward the magnetic pole. The hypothesis is that this artifact represents a rudimentary form of compass, nearly 1,000 years older than the first Chinese mention. If confirmed, this discovery would reposition the Olmecs as inventors of one of the most fundamental scientific instruments in history. 6. The origin of the feathered serpent in Olmec culture. Among the most enduring icons of Mesoamerica is the feathered serpent, Quetzalcoatl to the Aztecs. Although Mayans, Toltecs, and Aztecs celebrated this figure, traces of the deity appear in Olmec art. Stela 19 from La Venta, dated to around 900 BCE, contains the oldest known depiction of this mythical being. A human engaged in a shamanic ritual, with winged serpentine forms in the background. This record suggests that from early on, the Olmecs cultivated a deeply mystical worldview, in which supernatural entities were central to social order. Even without certainty that it was the same deity, later worshipped by other peoples, the enduring presence of symbols like feathers, serpents, and shamans supports the idea of religious continuity. Some go further, proposing extraterrestrial origins for the feathered serpent, a notion within non-conventional lines of research. Regardless, the spiritual nature of Olmec art underscores the significance of a religious foundation that would permeate the entire region. 7. The enigma behind the name Olmec. In truth, we do not know what this people called themselves. Olmec was a term spread by the Aztecs and means inhabitants of the land of rubber, a reference to the numerous rubber trees found in Tabasco and Veracruz. The latex extracted from these trees was essential for making the balls used in the ball game, a practice common throughout Mesoamerica. Today, Olmec also denotes an artistic style recognizable by the colossal stone heads and ceremonial objects. Curiously, this sculptural style appears in distant regions such as Jalisco, Oaxaca, and even Costa Rica, evidencing extensive trade and cultural exchange routes. This diffusion reinforces the role of the Olmecs as a mother civilization of Mesoamerica, whose influence spread over centuries. Still, not knowing how they self-identified is a reminder of how many questions remain unanswered about their true history and identity. 8. Could the Olmecs have been Africans who arrived before Columbus? There are schools of thought, though highly contested, that propose an African origin for the Olmecs. The most well-known theory is that of historian Ivan van Sertima, presented in They Came Before Columbus, 1976, in which he suggests that Nubian peoples from West Africa arrived in Mesoamerica around 1500 BCE. Van Sertima based his argument mainly on the famous colossal heads. According to him, the facial features, such as full lips, rounded noses, and prominent eyes, resemble African traits. He also pointed to supposed similarities between symbols engraved on Olmec rocks and writing systems of Mandinka ethnic groups. For Van Sertima, these visitors left traces not only in Mexico, but also at archaeological sites in what is now the southwestern United States and even Canada. Although there is a lack of archaeological or genetic evidence to support this hypothesis, some maintain that the sculptures reflect a transoceanic exchange far older than commonly acknowledged. 9. Why did the Olmec heads wear helmets? 17 giant heads have been discovered in the central area of the Olmec civilization, carved from basalt blocks up to 3 meters tall and weighing more than 10 tons. Each head features striking facial traits, broad noses, full lips, and prominent eyes, and all wear a kind of richly decorated helmet or headgear. Interpretations vary. Some researchers see these helmets as symbols of power, associating them with rulers, deities, or warriors. Others link them to athletes in the ritual ball game, suggesting the headgear signified social status. Small sculptures and ceremonial altars reinforce this pattern. In the so-called baby faces, and in pieces such as Altar 4 from La Venta, where a seated figure holds a rope, and Altar 5, in which a person emerges from a cavity. The helmet also appears as a marker of identity and prestige in Olmec iconography. 10. What do experts say about a possible African connection? Since the 19th century, when José Melgar compared the Olmec heads to African features, theories have circulated about pre-Columbian contact between Africa and Mesoamerica. However, genetic and immunological studies conducted in recent decades have found no evidence of admixture to support this hypothesis. Most archaeologists and anthropologists maintain that the Olmec culture evolved independently, with deep local roots. According to these scholars, attributing Olmec achievements to external influences often reflects an ethnocentric bias that underestimates the creative capacities of indigenous peoples. Nevertheless, the debate persists in popular forums, keeping alive the speculation about transoceanic voyages before Christopher Columbus. 11. Quetzalcoatl, a god of extraterrestrial origin. Quetzalcoatl, a central figure in Aztec mythology, appears sometimes as a feathered serpent and sometimes as a man. Some colonial accounts, such as those by the Franciscan friar Juan de Torquemada in the 16th century, describe him as light-skinned and bearded, which was unusual for the region. He is said to have preached against human sacrifices before the Spanish conquest. Among the Maya, he was known as Cuculcan, a wise figure who taught the use of fire and construction techniques. Bolder authors, such as Graham Hancock in Fingerprints of the Gods, have even suggested that Quetzalcoatl was an alien visitor, part of a supposedly benevolent race called the Blue Avians that inspired ancient civilizations. Such conjectures further deepen the mystery surrounding the origins of this iconic Mesoamerican god. 12. The enigma of the Cascajal Block. Discovered in 1999 in the state of Veracruz, Mexico, the Cascajal Block is one of the most fascinating relics of the Olmec civilization. It is a serpentine stone block measuring 21 centimeters in height, 13 centimeters in width, and weighing around 11.5 kilograms, inscribed with 62 symbols. At approximately 3,000 years old, it represents the oldest known writing artifact in the Americas. Found by chance during gravel extraction just a few kilometers from the San Lorenzo archaeological site, the block stands out for the horizontal layout of its glyphs, which contrasts with the vertical inscriptions typical of other Mesoamerican writing systems. Although many of the symbols seem to depict everyday scenes, their true meaning remains unclear. For scholars such as Stephen D. Houston of Brown University, this artifact marks a turning point in the emergence of writing in the region. Some suggest the block is merely a fragment of a larger codex, perhaps containing celestial maps or encoded messages, or even an attempt to communicate with unknown intelligences. Others see it as a clue to the social, economic, or religious life of the Olmecs. Still, fully deciphering the symbols remains an insurmountable challenge. 13. Asian origin of the Olmec peoples. Like the other early inhabitants of the Americas, the ancestors of the Olmecs migrated from Asia, crossing the Bering Strait during the last ice age, about 12,000 years ago. Around 2000 BCE, groups of these pioneers settled along the rivers of present-day Tabasco and Veracruz, where they adapted to the hot and humid climate. Archaeologist Richard Deal of the University of Alabama notes that these newcomers began cultivating maize and beans, diversifying their diet and making agriculture the foundation of their subsistence. According to him, this development was driven by population growth and the need for large-scale production. Still, how hunter-gatherer communities reorganized into a hierarchical society remains a mystery. Deal proposes that a charismatic elite, responsible for organizing trade and exercising social control, was crucial to the structure of Olmec civilization, whose artistic and architectural achievements continue to impress. 14. Simple but functional architecture. Although they were pioneers in Mesoamerican culture, the Olmecs did not build the grand monuments seen in later civilizations. In San Lorenzo, which flourished around 1200 BCE, buildings were modest, constructed mainly from wood and clay with thatched roofs, without extensive use of cut stone. The Great Pyramid of La Venta, built around 800 BCE, reached a height of about 30 meters, an impressive feat for its time, but modest compared to later pyramids like El Castillo in Chichen Itza, which rises over 60 meters. The relatively small size of Olmec cities, with only a few thousand people, in contrast to the hundreds of thousands in major Maya centers, partly explains this simplicity. Still, the Olmecs displayed remarkable urban planning. Streets and plazas precisely aligned, often based on astronomical observations, revealing impressive technical skill even on a small scale. 15. The enigma of the end of the Olmec civilization. Around 400 BCE, the Olmec civilization began to decline, prompting its people to gradually abandon the Gulf Coast. It is unclear whether this exodus was voluntary or hastened by natural disasters. San Lorenzo was already deserted by around 900 BCE, while La Venta lost its last inhabitants some 5 centuries later. Possible causes of the collapse include climate changes, perhaps due to volcanic eruptions that disrupted agriculture, and the rise of neighboring powers such as the Maya and Zapotes, who may have disrupted Olmec trade routes. Internal conflicts and resource shortages may have worsened the instability. Even after their disappearance, the Olmecs left a lasting legacy. Symbols such as the feathered serpent, practices like the ball game, and their colossal heads continue to inspire researchers. Their technological and cultural contributions laid the groundwork for later civilizations, and mysteries such as the Cascajal Block and the reasons for their decline still fuel intense academic debate. Today, Olmec influence remains alive in the history of Mesoamerica, remembered as the pioneering chapter of one of humanity's most fascinating stories. And speaking of historical mysteries, don't forget to check out the 2 videos YouTube recommends now to dive even deeper into surprising curiosities. See you soon.